página web de Colfuturo. Mi nombre es Camila Flores, soy parte del equipo de Consejería Académica y Relaciones Internacionales y les agradecemos a las personas que están conectadas para conocer acerca de University of East Anglia del Reino Unido. La idea es que durante esta sesión ustedes hagan preguntas en el chat que encuentran al lado derecho de sus pantallas y al finalizar las estaremos respondiendo. Mark, welcome. We will start projecting the video and then we will tell you when the video is over so you can start to introduce yourself.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, Mark. You can
Hi.
now introduce yourself again.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Mark Bentley. I'm from the University of East Anglia, also known as UEA, which, as you will know, is in the United Kingdom. So I'm going to give you some basic information about UEA, lots of things, including the courses, the location, the campus, and I hope that you're going to have lots of questions at the end of this presentation. So we are UEA and we were founded in 1963. So that makes us a very young institution, as you know. Compared to any university, I guess it's quite modern, but definitely compared to universities here in England and Scotland, which have some very, very old universities, we are very young in comparison. But despite this, we have risen through the rankings. The UK has some of the most highly ranked universities in the world, as you know, and we're very proud that we've got into the top 15, top 20 of rankings within the UK. So we were proud last year to be ranked number 14th as one example by the Complete University Guide in 2019. Also in the top 200, according to the Times Higher Education. And this one, I'm not sure if you've seen UK universities talking about this one, but it's TEF, which is the Teaching Excellence Framework. So this is a governmental ranking, and it basically gave universities the opportunity to apply for their teaching to be assessed. And those that applied were given usually either gold, silver, or bronze. 25% of the universities that entered were given gold status, and we were one of those universities, so we're very proud of that. A lot of the top ranked universities in the UK have very good research, and UEA also has very good research, but the government brought in this ranking and this teaching excellence framework as a way to assess teaching as well, because I'm sure you'll agree that teaching can often be just as important as research quality. So we're very, very happy to be doing quite well in both teaching and research these days. So I want to just give you a little bit of information about the location of Norwich and the surrounding area. So you can see Norwich on the map there. It's kind of in the southeast of England, and that whole peninsula, it's not really exactly a peninsula, but the part of land that juts out to the east is called East Anglia. So East Anglia includes Norfolk, Cambridgeshire, Essex, and it's that whole region. Now you can see we're not too far away from Heathrow, away from London. London takes about 2 hours by car to get to, depending on exactly where you're going, and less than 2 hours by train. So the fastest trains that we have are about 1 hour and a half into London. But most of the trains take a little bit longer, like 1 hour 40 minutes, 1 hour 50 minutes. So very easy to go to London for the day and come back to Norwich in the evening during a weekend, for example. Then you can see Cambridge on the map as well. So Cambridge is not far away also. That's about 1 hour or just over 1 hour to get to by train or by car. And you can see that Amsterdam is on this map. And we have an airport in Norwich, and that has a very regular connection with Amsterdam. So if you're flying from Colombia, for example, you can fly from Bogota to Heathrow, of course. You can fly from Bogota to London. But what I try to do when I visit Colombia is go via Amsterdam. So if you go via KLM, you can go from Bogota to Amsterdam, have a coffee there, and then Amsterdam to Norwich is less than 1 hour. In fact, it's 35 minutes in the air. So that's a really easy way to do it, because when you arrive to Norwich Airport, it's very small, it's very convenient, it's very fast. So you can see that we're on like the southern side of England, on the east as well. And that means that we have quite good weather where we are compared to other parts of the UK. So it's a little bit warmer in the south, and it's a little bit less windy and rainy in the east. So our weather is generally relatively quite good. It's still the UK, you know, and the UK is famous for bad weather. But compared to other places, I think it's not as bad where we are. And today it's very, very sunny outside. It's quite cool, it's quite cold, but the sun has been shining all day. So this is the city of Norwich, okay? So these are some of the historic buildings in Norwich. This one is the cathedral, and to the left of this picture you can see a castle. So it does look very historic. It looks almost rural, but this is a city. This has a lot of hustle bustle. It might not have tall buildings. It might not have huge traffic jams, but it is a city with lots going on, believe it or not. So this is the cathedral here. That is 900 years old. And then the castle to the left is about the same age. And the castle actually is, you can visit. It's a museum, and it has a shopping center underneath the castle. So this is some of the parts of the city, shopping centers, nightlife. Another part of the city, another one of the old churches there, and the Forum building to the left. So there's quite a lot of shopping within the city centre. We've got a beautiful market that you can see here. It's one of the oldest of its kind in the UK, but also 3 very modern shopping centres as well. So we have independent shops, we have designer stores, we have department stores. So it's well known to be a good place for shopping in our city. And then this is just some of the nightlife that we have. This is the Riverside area. So late at night, this can get really busy, but there's also the actual city center as well. This is just away from the very center of the city, but also the very center of the city can get very busy during the nighttime as well. And these are some of the historic pictures of the city. So the cathedral that we saw before from a different angle this time, the castle again from a different angle, and then the bottom right you can see, I think that street is a street I know called Elm Hill, sorry, and that is one of several cobbled streets which are well known within the UK as being, very historic, a lot of history, very picturesque. They sometimes shoot movies there, like Stardust, for example, had some scenes shot there. So you can see that the city really does have a lot of history, and it's very kind of British, a British atmosphere. The campus is about 15 or 20 minutes by bus away from the city centre. So this is the campus. Pretty much most of what you can see here is the campus. You see all of this area. And within the campus, you have everything you need for everyday life. So the city centre is only less than 20 minutes away, but you can very much stay on the campus if you want to, and everything's going to be easy. We've got over 4,000 rooms, so 4,000 accommodation rooms on the campus. As you may know, in the UK, you usually have your own room, and then you share an apartment with several other people, but within that you have your own room, and most of our rooms have their own toilet and shower. But anywhere on this campus is less than 10 minutes walk from anywhere else. So you can get up in the morning, go to your class. You don't have to necessarily think about any travel arrangements, any commuting, any traffic. You can go on foot to your class, usually within 5 minutes, and then you can eat in one of the many cafes. The library is right there in the center of the campus, and that's open 24/7, so 24 hours a day, every day of the year. But there's lots to enjoy as well on the campus. We have live music in the Students' Union. We've had Coldplay before. We've had Taylor Swift. We've had Foo Fighters, Snoop Dogg. So there's lots of live music. Not to say those guys are here every week, but every year we do have like at least one or two big names come to our campus. And then a sports park as well. I'm going to show you some pictures of that. So fantastic sports facilities on your doorstep. And also the bottom left, you can see an interesting looking building. That's an art centre, the Sainsbury Centre for Visual Arts. So I'll show you a picture of that as well. So this is the campus from another angle. I guess, yeah, you can see the lake in the bottom of this picture, and then the same lake on the right of this picture. So you can see that all the buildings are there's a lot of green space, which all belongs to the university and which you're very free to walk around. But the buildings are quite connected to each other. So where I am broadcasting from right now is around here on the campus, you see. So if I want to go to the shops, it's just literally a 2-minute walk down here. But then if I wanted to go for a walk during my lunch break, for example, I could walk over here, I could walk around the lake. So all the facilities are very, very close, but also all the nature is very close as well. And yeah, these are just some scenes around the campus to give you a flavor of student life. I mentioned the 24-hour library. We have a lot of sports on the campus as well. The campus sports park that I mentioned earlier includes an Olympic-sized swimming pool amongst many other facilities. So as well as the Olympic-sized pool, we have squash, we have badminton, volleyball, we have an actual gym in there. So pretty much almost any kind of sport that you can think of, we probably have it at the sports park. The Sainsbury Centre for Visual Arts is down there as well. I'm going to show you some more pictures of that. Campus restaurant. So I was saying that everything you need for everyday life is on campus. So that includes cafes, coffee shops. It also, by the way, includes a post office, a bank, a doctor's, a dentist, pharmacy. So you're pretty much set. It is very much easy to leave the campus, but it's definitely not something you have to do a lot if you don't want to do that. The accommodation there's a lot of accommodation on campus. And for those who choose to live on campus, it can make things very easy and very convenient. So, yeah, a lot of clubs and societies. So this is something, particularly at UEA, that we really emphasize, study hard, but also play hard as well, whether that's enjoying yourself with sports or clubs and societies. There's lots of different kinds of clubs, It might be something, for For example, we had a meetup last week and they were talking about there's a Latin American society. So it might be something like that, some interest, horror movie society, poker club, lots of different things, as well as all the sports as well. So that is really a great way to mix in a different circle, you know. So you might have your friends from your class, maybe if you're studying law, for example, you might have friends who are also studying law, you might have friends in your accommodation, but then it's also great to branch out and meet friends through a club or society as well. For example, climbing, this is the climbing wall in the sports center. That's something that I do actually, and it's a great way to meet people, to just give yourself a break. So definitely something that we encourage. Now, this isn't a picture of the Avengers facility, so you might be like surprised or confused about why I'm showing you this picture. So this was actually filmed on our campus. So in this picture, they used some CGI, but the Sainsbury's Centre that I showed you before was actually where they filmed the Avengers facility, so the kind of headquarters of the Avengers. So that's something that students get very excited about. So if you study at UEA, you can pretty much study next to the Avengers headquarters, the Avengers base. And it was filmed here at UEA, and they use it for not just, I think it's the Avengers Assemble, but also Ant-Man, Spider-Man. So you can see our Sainsbury's Centre for Visual Arts, our art museum, appearing in the Avengers movie, which is quite cool. And some of the accommodation, I mentioned we have a lot of accommodation. It depends on the student. Some people prefer to live off campus, actually. It just gives you that little bit of feeling of independence, you know, feeling of not being at the university all the time. And there's lots of private accommodation just within walking distance from the campus. Sometimes people can find a cheaper room off campus, but there's definitely plenty on the campus as well. So these are some examples. Ensuite, so that means with a toilet, with a shower in your own private room. So ensuite campus is from £150 per week, and then village, which is just next to the campus, from £121. And then another example, the ziggurat buildings are cheaper, and that's from about £114. That for that particular one, you're sharing a bathroom, you know, so you're sharing the toilet and the shower facilities with other students, and that's why it's a little bit cheaper. And then you have the twin example as well. So in that example, you'd definitely be paying a lot less if you're happy to share with somebody else. Okay, so this can be paid, you know, not usually weekly, it's usually termly or monthly, depending on what's better for you. And if you do go for the university accommodation, you know, you don't have to worry about bills or anything like that. Everything is included. Of course, Wi-Fi across the campus. The room is cleaned, I believe, twice a week. And in all of these university accommodations, you would have your own room, usually on your own, but some people would have like a twin apartment. But for most people that have their own room, you have a lock on the door. It's very much your private space, but then you have a kitchen and dining area, which you share with about 10 other students typically. So that's the way it usually works. And that's true of most UK university accommodation provision, actually. So you've usually got your own room, but then you share a kitchen and diner with other students. Okay, so to talk a little bit more about UEA and the courses that we offer, you can see we have 4 faculties, all right? So within science, of course, biology, chemistry, that includes also in biology and environmental science includes ecology, but we have computing science also, engineering, environmental science, mathematics, natural sciences, and pharmacy. And then in arts, we have American studies, film, history, language, literature, philosophy, politics and international relations, as well as art history. which is in that fantastic art museum, the Avengers base that we saw. We also have medicine, and by the way, we have a university hospital, which is the 6th largest hospital in the UK, which is very close to the campus. There's a regular bus, but even on foot, you can be there in less than 20 minutes walking if you want to walk. Social sciences as well. Of course, we have business, economics, we have education, we have a very good school of law, social work, psychology, and I shouldn't forget international development, which is a subject which many of the Colombian students that we have here do come to do international development. So just to talk a little bit about some of the science courses and to look at those, I think that, you know, science is very, very strong in the UK. I mentioned, or in UEA, sorry, I mentioned the research strength here at UEA. So including our research park and the university, we're one of the largest concentrations of science research in the UK after London, Oxford and Cambridge. I should also mention that we are one of the most highly cited universities in the world for research. So we're top 50 in terms of research citations. And then I talked through before about the social science subjects. You can see the law school in this building. International development is an area that gets a lot of attention from Colombia. Arts and humanities, very strong as well. Just to mention, literature, drama, and creative writing is something that we're very, very well known for. The person in the lower picture there is Sir Ian McEwan, who wrote Atonement, and he was one of our graduates. We've also had the Nobel Prize winner, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2017. Kazuo Ishiguro also did his master's in creative writing with us. And medicine and health, some of the areas listed there as well. So I just wanted to talk about some examples. I expect we probably have a range of interests amongst the people listening, but I don't want to spend too long, but just to talk through some areas that Colombians are often interested in. So the School of Environmental Sciences, I mean, climate change is a huge deal for UEA. So, of course, very, very relevant these days, very topical. And our university was one of the first in the world to really start measuring climate change back in the 1960s. And we contribute to much of the research that's coming out at the moment about, you know, the last 10 years being the hottest decade. A lot of that research is developed by our university. So, for example, the Paris talks that took place in 2017, UEA contributed more research towards those talks than any other university in the world. So those are some of the master's courses we have in environmental science. And then in biology as well, ecology is often quite popular for our students coming from Colombia. And yeah, we have a big partnership between, we're kind of one of the leading partners in a partnership between UK universities and Colombian universities in terms of doing research into biodiversity in Colombia, and that's called Grow Colombia. And then I mentioned before the School of International Development. So this is a really popular area. So this is, I mean, it can be thought of as a kind of geography, looking at the developing world. So it can include areas such as economics, it can include social development, climate change and the environment and how that impacts on development, education, impact evaluation, which is something that we're very strong in, gender, water security, media, and also conflict, governance, and international development. So these are the different MA programs. just within international development. So the different, MA and MSc, so the different master's programs just within international development. So as you can imagine, there's such a lot of choices of classes, of modules, as we call them, within each of those programs, and a lot of crossover. If you were doing something with regards to water security, you may also have the option to do other aspects. You might be interested in something completely different, like gender, for example. So you can often mix and match between the different modules. And this is a school or department of UEA, which really, again, has a long history and is very well known, and indeed 11th in the world, according to QS, for development studies. So this is very, very kind of general information. We do advise you to check the requirements, and of course, Colfuturo will have their own requirements as well. But just to mention about the master's programs, we are looking for a GPA of above 3.5 out of 5 from Columbia. But to be honest, that's very much a minimum, and most of our applicants would have more than that, and certainly most of the students that receive Colfuturo funding, as far as I've seen. But that's our minimum kind of standard requirement for master's courses. And many of them will require 6.5 in IELTS, with 5.5 in each component. So we do accept quite a range of English language certifications as well, not just IELTS, but that gives you a guideline anyway. Work experience is not required for most master's programs, although it may be relevant for some of the master's programs. For example, thinking of development again, if you maybe you don't have an academic background in anything related to development, but maybe you've demonstrated an interest through working for a charity or something like that, that would be relevant in your application. Then for PhD, again, the same kind of minimum requirements would be in place, but that is very much a minimum. It's not as if you're going to be offered a place on a PhD just because you have those grades. It's just giving you a guideline at the absolute minimum. A master's is preferred for a PhD, but not absolutely essential in all cases. What we are interested in is the research experience. So if somebody has a lot of research experience relatively for an undergraduate degree, then we would sometimes be prepared to consider them for entry onto a PhD. And IELTS requirements are kind of case by case, but usually we're looking for at least 7 in IELTS. So we do have a lot of career support. So whilst you're here at UEA, you can benefit from the career support even for finding a part-time job or an internship or something like that, but then also thinking more longer term. So if you'd like to apply for work after your studies here in the UK, we can definitely help with that. If you're going back to Columbia, as I expect most of you would be if you receive the Colfuturo funding, then we can also try to assist with that as well. Obviously, we're not experts on Columbia like you are, but we can, for example, put you in touch with former graduates and just try to help in small ways like that. Or if you're thinking of setting up your own business, that's something that we support as well. And we've supported Colombian graduates with that quite successfully, even for setting up their own business in Colombia. So some of the fees, obviously, I think most of you who are listening are postgraduates. Postgraduate taught is the master's fee. So most of the courses would be, for example, if it was law, if it was international development, if it was economics, it would be £16,400 for the whole year. And then business can be a little bit higher than that, depending on the course. And then for PhD, it's usually 15,700 for social sciences or humanities courses, and then 19,100 for science courses. So this is just very much an approximate kind of guideline of the standard course costs, but then we would definitely advise you to look online. and to see the full details. Okay, now these are the kind of annual fees. As you will know, the Masters in the UK is just 1 year. So this is the 1 year fee for a Masters, for example. But depending on your funding situation, whether you receive Culfutura funding or whether you don't, you can pay on the basis that kind of suits you. So some students choose to pay the whole lot all at once, or some students choose to pay by term, so other students choose to pay by month. So that's absolutely fine. Our finance office are happy to set up a plan that works for you. And the payments would usually start after you arrive at UEA. So for master's courses, we prefer to have, and for PhD, we prefer to have either your Culfutura funding letter or a deposit of £2,000, but then the rest of the payments will start after you arrive. So some of the scholarships, we do have a lot of scholarships, but of course I wanted to mention the Culfutura fee waiver. So that's 100% tuition fee scholarship for one student. And to be very honest, we don't have, I mentioned, there are certain areas that are popular for Colombian students, but it's not like hundreds of students are applying, to be honest. If you're seriously interested in UEA, then and you have a good chance to get Culfutura, then everybody would hopefully have a chance to get this 100% fee waiver. Obviously, one student will get that in the end, but it's not going to be hundreds of students competing for this. Usually, we have 10 students or less coming to UEA each year. So I think that don't think that it's impossible. You may have a chance to have this 100% scholarship. But even if not, if you do get the Culfutura funding, you would definitely have a 25% discount if you're doing a master's course. And then if you're doing a PhD, it would be a 20% discount, as you have most probably seen on the Culfutura website. But I guess at this stage, you're not sure if you're receiving that funding. Whether you do receive Culfutura or not, we do have a lot of other scholarships available. Just mentioning a couple of examples there. Full fee scholarship for international development. There are a small number of full fee scholarships, for example, in creative writing as well. And then also in international development, there are up to 6 scholarships worth £7,000 purely for Colombians only. So that's quite a good opportunity as well. Okay, so I think this is my last slide, and I've left some links there and my email address. We do have a Colombia page on our website, so probably I've got the link there, but you can easily just Google UEA Colombia and it should hopefully come up. And that has a lot of information on it about some of the scholarships I've talked about just now, about the Colombian students at our university, about the partners in Colombia, and all of that kind of thing. So I recommend checking that out. Facebook, we have our UEA Facebook page, of course. We also have a Latin America page. So again, definitely something worth checking out. The picture of the student that you can see there is Natalia. So she is the Latin America Student Ambassador this year. So she can be on hand to help you if you have any questions about student life or something that you just want to find out, but you're more comfortable to ask her as a student rather than a staff member like me. She'd be really happy to hear from you. And you can contact her through the Facebook page is the best way to get hold of her. And then we have, of course, lots online in terms of social media, Instagram that I'm listed here, but we also have a YouTube channel. So that's a really good way to find out more about the university. So I think that's the end of my presentation. So I hope I've covered the basics, but I really hope that you have some questions.
Hello, Mark. Thank you so much for all the information. We do have a couple of questions, so I will proceed now to ask them.
Great. Thank you, Camilla.
So the first question is from Paola, and she says, I have a question. In UK, can I work while I'm doing my master? Does the visa allow me?
Yes, is the simple answer to that. So whilst you're doing your master's, whilst you're in the term time, you can work for up to 20 hours per week. But then in the holiday time, you can work for up to 40 hours per week. So there are no restrictions on the type of work. It could be in our city, it could be anywhere, you know. So as long as it's within the UK, you can definitely work for 20 hours maximum during term time, 40 hours maximum, which is like full time, I guess, during the holidays. After you finish, the way it is now, after you finish, you have 6 months where you can work full time, up to 40 hours if you want. But the government are saying that they will extend that to 2 years. They haven't actually done it yet, but they plan to do that before we start studies again in September 2020. They've said that they will introduce that.
Thank you. The next question is, do you have an MBA?
Yes, we do have an MBA. We have a requirement of 3 years work experience. It's an MBA whereby you can gain a consultancy. I think it's a recognized consultancy qualification. Is it the Chartered Institute of Consultancy? Perhaps I could be wrong on that, but it's a very well recognized consultancy qualification. And it is a general MBA. I think that one of the strengths of our MBAs compared to many others is the diversity. So we have usually about 20 students on the program. It's quite a small kind of select program, but usually we have, you know, more than 15 nationalities within that. So it's not as if you know, if you're going to do the MBA, it's not as if you have most of the students are from the UK or from China or from India or anything like that. It's a very diverse group. But for the kind of student that's looking at an MBA, you might also consider our Masters in Enterprise and Business Creation. You might also consider our Masters in Brand Leadership. We have some new courses in digital analytics, as well as courses in logistics. So those master's courses are worth looking at as well as the general MBA program that we have.
Thank you, Mark. Do you have an approximate cost of living per month?
Yeah. So the UK government, they advise that the cost of living for an international student outside of London is £1,015. Okay, so I don't want to be in any trouble with the government, so I should repeat. You know, I should relay that to you. I do know, like from personal experience and from what students tell me, that is very realistic for Norwich. I think that, you know, a lot of students, you know, if you talk about Colombia here in the UK, if I talk about Colombia to my friends, they're going to say, oh, right, Bogota, yeah. You know, if I ask somebody, where do you want to go in Colombia? They might just say Bogota, you know, it's the natural kind of thing that people think about. And I think it often works the other way. So people think about England or the UK and they think about London. But as a lot of you may know already, London can be really expensive, especially for accommodation. So that's why the UK government have two guideline kind of costs. For Norwich, you saw some of the prices for accommodation. So where we are at UEA, it might be £150 per week, for example, or sometimes less, which of course is about £600 a month. So usually the accommodation is the biggest cost. And usually that's more than half of the students' costs. So £1,000 a month is quite realistic. Of course, it depends on your lifestyle as well, you know, and if you have expensive habits or what you want to do in your free time. But I think that, you know, you saw our campus, you saw our city. It's a place where, and perhaps something I didn't stress enough was, you know, Norwich is just a really nice quality of life. It's a nice city in terms of like air, in terms of safety, in terms of how clean it is, in terms of how friendly it is. It really compares well to bigger cities like London or Manchester. And we're often being mentioned in newspapers about how we have one of the best ranking or the best reputations for quality of life in the UK.
Thank you, Mark. Stefania is asking if it's possible to apply for a PhD right after finishing the master. If so, if it's possible to apply for a scholarship as well.
So I'm not sure if the person is doing a master's right now or just wants to do a master's and then a PhD with us. It's certainly possible to go from the master's right to the PhD. I'm not saying it's always easy, but I think that if you do a master's in the UK, it is a very good preparation for a PhD in the UK. So as you may know, the kind of academic culture here is very different from most places. They're very different from Colombia. So I think that if you have some experience here and you meet the academics, you meet the professors, it can be a great launch pad to then do a PhD. If you're doing a master's there and would like to do a PhD here, yeah, it can be possible, but it's, you know, sometimes the PhD can take maybe at least 6 months to kind of arrange in most cases. So it can be possible if we have the documents in place. That's of course helpful. But for students that are like still waiting for their certificate, then we can kind of provisionally get ready for the student to have the documentation before they arrive. So we can give, in all cases, actually for a PhD and for a master's as well, it's probably worth mentioning that we can give a conditional offer. You know, you might apply and you might not have your degree certificate or your master's certificate, but that's fine. We encourage you to apply anyway. You might not have your English language, but in those kind of cases where something is missing, but everything else looks great, we would give a conditional offer.
Thank you, Mark. Diana is asking if you can mention some requirements to win a scholarship in the UEA.
So, I mean, it kind of depends on the course that you're applying for. I think that a high GPA is always going to help, definitely. And I know that, you know, that's one of the factors that you consider at Col Futuro. It's also one of the, you know, main things that we look at here. So I think that if there's a simple answer to that question, I think, yeah, high GPA definitely helps. When we see like a high IELTS score or something like that, of course, it can help a little bit as well. And we want you to, you know, of course, explain your motivations for doing the course, explain your motivations for choosing UEA, for choosing the course, and you have the opportunity to do that in your personal statement. So yeah, there's no real kind of secret to getting a scholarship. It's mainly good grades, but of course, everything else in the application can help as well.
Mark, we have a question. Is it for any scholarship or is it specifically for the Col Futuro 100% scholarship?
Well, I know a little bit about Col Futuro, but I would advise people to speak to yourselves, you know, to speak to Col Futuro staff about the specific kind of criteria that you use. I have been, you know, I have looked at it before. It's a really good, robust criteria, and I'm really impressed with the way Col Futuro assess students. So for that one, it is best to speak to Col Futuro staff. That 100% scholarship will be selected by Col Futuro, not by UEA. So, you know, we're so impressed with the way that Col Futuro assess the students and rank the students that we'd like Col Futuro to give the 100% scholarship to the student that you rank number one.
Thank you, Mark. The next question is from Daniela, and she says, if I want to start my master's in September 2021, when should I send my documents? Also, the 100 scholarship will be available by then?
2021, well, yeah, I mean, most of our courses start in September. You know, the agreement that was only made quite recently between UEA and Colfuturo is for 100% scholarship every year. So yeah, we expect that there's, you know, it's going to be, it wasn't made just for 1 year. We made it with the intention of it going hopefully many years. So yeah, we expect that it will be available again next year. For 2021, you know, there's no rush right now. And my colleagues are quite busy processing the applications we have for 2020. But you know, if things are looking kind of, if the student has the documentation ready and knows which course she wants to apply for, then yeah, you can apply now. Or if you would prefer to just contact me and discuss the application a little bit more, that's fine as well.
The next question is from Omar, and he says, does the Master in Finance have an internship option?
As it stands, it's not I don't think there's an actual internship. There might be an opportunity. I think the business school is slowly introducing more and more opportunities for the student to find an internship during the final summer term. But that is something that I would have to check, to be honest, to look into. Omar is very welcome to contact me at my email address. So I'll try to find out specifically rather than going from memory on that one.
Thank you. Stephanie is asking, for the MBA, I can present the GMAT exam or I can present another one?
Well, for the MBA, I mean, we do want you to have a degree, but there's no entry test, you know. So some people are sometimes quite surprised about that. But in the UK, we don't usually have an entry test for these kind of courses. So GMAT is not necessary. We're interested in the experience, actually, for MBA more than anything else. So if she has 3 years of managerial level experience, that's what we're looking for. So if, I think her name was Stephanie, did you say? So if Stephanie can present this in her resume, CV as we call it, that would be great. And then all MBA applicants that reach the second stage are then considered for an interview. So that would be a Skype interview usually. And it's at that time that sometimes my colleagues in the business school are able to make offers of scholarships as well. So yeah, there's no entry test, but we are very interested in the experience of each student.
Thank you. The last question is, I study a master's program, but I want to study another one at your university. Do you check my GPA for my undergraduate or my master's program?
Both. So we'd like to see both. Let's say, yeah, we'll take both into account. So if the GPA from the undergraduate is a little bit low, but you have a master's and it's quite a good GPA in the master's, so we would consider that. So yeah, we want to see everything really, and we want to make a human decision. You know, we're not trying to find a way to reject you. We're trying to find a way to accept you really. If we think that, you know, you've done well overall. So we'd like to see both. I mean, if it's just worth mentioning that if you're doing a master's, if you've done a master's, for example, in Colombia, and then you're looking to do a very similar master's or similar subject title in the UK, that's sometimes a problem. But if, for example, you've done, I don't know, let's say that you've done some kind of science master's, but now you're interested in a business master's in the UK, then that's then that's absolutely fine. But there are sometimes visa problems if you're applying to do a master's that you already kind of have from Columbia.
Thank you so much, Mark, for answering all the questions. If you have any further questions, you can contact him at his email. We will be sending the link of this webinar in about a week or so to everyone that's subscribed to this webinar. And yeah, thank you so much for being here and for presenting all of this information.
Thank you, Camilla, and thank you for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for listening. And I hope to see you in Colombia or here at UEA someday. Good luck.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.